Okay, today I'm going to create a short tutorial on how to draw an eye. And the very first step is make sure you have your materials. You need a pencil, and I definitely would have some sort of eraser. This one will suit me just fine. And the other thing that's really, really important is that you have an image that you're drawing from. I'm drawing my eye, so I took a photograph, printed it out, mainly because it's easier for the tutorial. You could work from your cell phone. So you certainly could, go to your picture gallery on your phone. You could pull something up and on your gallery and find a picture that you might want to draw on there. All right. So that's another thing that you could do is find a picture on your phone and look at your phone. The other thing too would just be a computer image. So that would be great too. All right. So here you can see number one, basic shape. The eye is actually a spherical shape, and it sits inside of a socket. All right, and that's your bone structure. So if you were to look at a skeleton, you're going to see the eyeball sitting in this larger kind of socket space. All right, so if I'm kind of looking at bone structure, it's going to be something similar to that. And here's the eyeball actually sitting in it. I'm not going to draw this real hard. It's going to be very light so that I can actually start to think about this. I'm going to erase, but just knowing what's underneath helps you to shape and form your eye. All right, so the next thing I like to draw is this shape. You certainly could start here. You could start shading around here. It's up to you. There's lots of different methods, lots of different roads to take in order to get to the same place. All right, so my eye is not that wide. It's kind of, I'm going to say kind of more thin and long and sort of narrow. Some of my favorite eyes are ones that are really curly and curvy. Sorry, not curly, but curvy. But this is my shape, so if I want to capture my likeness, I've got to look for that shape. Alright, so that's kind of basic shape. Next basic shape is, another sphere. That's going to be that iris shape. And what you want to think about is negative space. Negative space is the shape, or the shapes of the space surrounding another shape or area. Alright, so if I'm drawing this iris space, I want to think about how big this is. One of the things that students a lot of times will do is either make this way too big. You can see I've only got a little bit of white of my eye showing here, and then I've got the tear duct in here. So I'm drawing this shape and that space in there. Alright, so a couple things not to do. Here's what I do see a lot of students doing. They will do something like this, and they'll draw just a pretty simple shape. It's oversimplified. It's not really a shape they observed. They might draw something like this, and they might draw the cow eye. Alright, it's really big. They're not leaving enough of the the sclera in here, so you don't want to do that. Same thing. You don't want to draw it so it's kind of little and beady like that. Our eyelids are meant to protect our eyes, and here you can see it covers a lot of that circle, and it also covers on my eyes the bottom. A lot of times I'll see some of the sclera underneath. Just depends on how wide your eyes are, so don't do that. The other common mistake is this one. We'll draw the eye, and they draw these kind of like oval irises. So you don't want to do an oval iris. Alright? You want to make sure that it's nice and round, so that if I were to continue this circle outside of the eyelid, it would be a nice circle. I've got like a nice little dime shape there. Alright, so just keep in mind that the eyelid is supposed to protect your eyes, and that's why usually it's covering, especially on the top, unless you're looking down at the floor, or down at your shirt, or down at your nose. You're not going to see anything on any white above the eye there, because the eyelid's going to cover it. Alright, so next I'm going to just draw the neck shape, which is going to be here. And mine's somewhat angular. Yours might be slightly curved. The line just kind of fuzzes out, and here it doesn't connect to the eye. That's another thing students like to do. Here, if you look in your mirror nice and close, you're going to see there's kind of like this little ledge right here under the eye. And then the eyelashes kind of come off of that ledge. And if you watched, I really like the Proko videos, I'm a big fan of them. If you watch them, he talks about drawing the eyelashes in clumps. So here on this lid, you can kind of see it comes really close to this part of the eye, but doesn't totally touch it. And there's little clumps, which you definitely want to avoid, or doing those kind of like spider leg eyelashes that you see a lot of beginning drawers do, little spider legs. That's what I call them. Alright, so you definitely don't want to draw that eye, do one of these, and just have the legs come out, you know, like this. It's so fake, you all know that. It's kind of like a real creepy eye with legs. Alright, so you don't want to do that. Think about drawing with little clumps. And then not too many down below. It's just a little bit of shading, a little bit of darkening down here. Alright. Here you can see, here is my pupil. Just a couple common things too that students will do when they're drawing pupils. This one's got other highlights and things coming in there, so that's what I'm going to draw for the pupil. It is, yes, very dark, but usually there's lights in there. Alright, so the other thing I don't want you to do with the pupil, some kids will do this. Sometimes students will draw a pupil and it won't be in the center. That's the other weird wacko thing you don't want to do. Alright, so be thinking about the pupil. Right here in this photograph, I really can't see the whole entire shape. Oops, get a little glare on that picture. Alright, I'm going to draw it like this. And then the other thing I like to do is come in here and put some of these highlights. And you can actually see how my eyelashes sort of are reflecting in here. So I'm going to take my eraser, and where I did put part of the iris, I'm going to erase out, because that's a very white section. Alright, and this side of my eye is a little darker right here, and this side's a little darker, pretty dark. And I've got a couple little highlights going on back here, but not too many. And I'm just going to go in and do the whole thing kind of a light value, and then I'll come back and do a little more refining in some spots to try to get the right value in there. Alright. Back over here too, you want to, a lot of times students don't want to put any shading or value inside of the sclera, but there really is a lot of shading and shadows inside of the sclera, because remember, it's a round ball, it's also very wet and there's a lot of moisture, and you get these highlights in here. So I am going to do some shading, not a lot, but some, and then I will continue to build and keep going with this image until I get all of the right shadows and shading where I like it. At this point, I probably would erase these lines. Because that was my basic structure, but once I sort of have it down, I don't need it anymore. Alright. But it is going to be really important to use the shading, use your values to kind of set some of these shadows and get that nice feel. And you can see it's kind of going around. If you saw that, where I had that circle drawn, a lot of these shadows are just kind of coming around there. Okay, I'm using gray paper. This is a good paper that I like to use for demos, because sometimes the gray paper cuts down on some of the glare that happens when you shoot a video. So since I am using gray paper, the highlights aren't coming out as bright. So I might get myself a white pencil and bring some of those in just so you can kind of see them. Alright, so eyebrows, you kind of want to just pay attention to the arc and the arch and where it is in relationship to the eye, how much space above the eye, and where does it actually start to angle and curve. Okay, and again, you don't have to draw every single little eyebrow strand. You can just kind of do, you know, a shape of a value Think about in some areas where it might get a little darker, and just kind of go with it like that. Okay, and then the last phase would just be to go in and keep refining, changing what needs to be darker, what needs to be maybe changed, or the shape needs to be changed somewhere. Comparing different values to each other. Is this darker? Is this lighter? This is a little darker than this. And just trying to make those subtle changes in the value. I've got a tiny little I've got a wrinkle right in there, and so on. Alright, so eventually you just kind of keep going there. Just to show you sort of what the white pencil, my voice probably faded away there a minute, what the white charcoal looks like, just so I can see, get some of the highlights in there. This is a really sort of bright spot. So you can sort of see the range of values now. There's a little bit of light in here, a little bit of light here, there's a little flecks of it there. I've got a pretty bright spot here where the brow bone is, and there's more sort of highlights below my eye where the cheekbone starts to sort of pop out, and then here as well. Alright, so that really starts to bring it to life a little bit more. And I highly recommend that you do use a really soft drawing pencil if you can. The soft drawing pencil is really useful because you can get the super dark blacks in there that you can't get with most regular pencils, like a mechanical pencil, for example. Okay, so if I had the time, I would definitely spend more time doing a lot more shading, refining, getting the values right, and really developing this form even further. But I'd like to see you all jump in, have fun with this, and come up with a really nice drawing that looks like your eye.